Hey everybody, we're the Menschwarmers. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Happy Shavuot to all those who had it last week. I hope your cheesecakes were dairy filled and your stomachs settled afterwards.
Yeah, we missed our normal pod drop last week, I think, because of Shavuot, or maybe we were supposed to. Anyways, maybe we skip it. Yeah, always a little dog day in the summertime.
Do you go Shavuot and I said Shavuos? Why do you say one or the other?
I guess the labor Zionist Hebrew day school I went to when I was a kid, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I mean, I had a grandfather who had the more Yiddish inflection on things.
Yep.
And I've always found it a bit of a put on if you didn't grow up with it, which is to say, like, anyone younger than our grandparents' age who didn't grow up speaking Yiddish in the house. It's I think the Hebrew pronunciation is more common than the traditional Yiddish S tuffing or tedding. Sorry, I guess.
I know my parents used to say this, like back in the day, but like the Jewish version of saying, so-and-so till the cows come home. My parents used to say, like, oh, he'll be out there till Shavuos.
Uh-huh.
That was their Yiddishism. And I'm thinking of that accent. I remember my Zeta always used to, when he would pray, he would say Adonai instead of Adonai. And
yeah, I hear you.
That's the accent.
I get it. I'm just saying. I've always thought it's more of a put on. I think it is for you as well, but you accept that it is, and you lean into it, which is funny.
Yes.
Speaking of that, there was just an article. I don't know if you saw. There was an article in Forward about recent Colts wide receiver draft pick Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah.
From our friend Lewis Keane.
Yeah.
And about how it's a conundrum on how to say his name for more Orthodox Jews who are more in the Hashem gang, I guess.
I was about to say, do you call him Yayai?
Yeah, and the answer is that he pronounces his name Adonai as opposed to Adonai. So I guess you can get around it that way, or calling him AD, which is what some of the other people that were in.
What has he picked his number yet? That's a good gematria question.
Like
what's the number?
18,
he should be 18
or 4, just like the Tetragrammaton.
Yeah, some sort of holy number.
If we could get him nicknamed the Tetragrammaton, that would be pretty cool. Like that would be. It would take both of the Jews in Indianapolis to make that happen.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe more than both the Jews. Yeah.
So when he played at Georgia and Texas, Mitchell apparently picked 10 because there were 9 wide receivers taken ahead of him. So he wants to use that as motivation, which I suppose we could call that in the Jewish tradition of spite. He picked a spite number.
Yeah, that's right. There hasn't been this godly a player since Hashim Thabit. Connecticut. He was great at Connecticut, but he didn't make it as an NBA player.
I think he played very briefly in Memphis.
He was drafted like 2nd overall. He was just a bit of a bust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
I do remember once a guy added me on LinkedIn whose name he was from somewhere in the Middle East. He was Arabic, but his name was Hashem Saeed.
Oh, okay.
So anytime he said something, I read it as Hashem said, there's a job opportunity in Dubai this week.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I think that because of the similarity in the cognizance, like Hashem means something in relation to God in the Arabic, but I'm not sure. Usually it's an Arabic name, but it's usually Hashim. I mean, know, again, regional pronunciations and whatnot. Anyways, getting sidetracked a little bit here.
Moving on from diphthongs.
This is sort of a catching up on the year episode. I want to talk some baseball, talk about some recent sports news. You and I got to play golf yesterday. That was pretty nice. Or 2 days ago, sorry.
2 days ago, it's true. We got out
local sports news.
Hit the links. We did not get recognized as the Menschwarmers, but we did yap and yuck as we often do on the golf course.
I let you absolutely hustle me on on a Nassau, and I'm very annoyed about it. Like, you gave me 3 strokes and then I went up 2 and you said, okay, let's just make it 2 strokes. And if you didn't beat me by the end, I was so exhausted by the end of the round. I didn't have the stamina.
That's how it goes. You got to have the koyach to get the bet going on.
Didn't do it. But
next time we'll just have to beat you by more. It's good to get out there. Enough
and
about
we missed,
our gambling.
We missed watching some U.S. Open, which had some Jews. 2 Jews tied for 21st. Max Grazerman and Daniel Berger both made the cut.
Yep.
And both struggled on
It's a
Saturday
tough course.
and Sunday. Yeah, Berger was 3 over on Sunday. Grazerman he was 3 over on Saturday. And Grazerman was 2 over on Saturday after just making the cut. They both ended up 5 over, which is good for 21st. Like, that's pretty good. Top 25 in a major, but the U.S. Open looks impossible.
And what matters, crazy. Both of them, is they're both in a place right now to keep their tour card. Both of them somewhat at risk of not making it, for the next year, but they're both doing well in order to keep theirs.
We'll see. It's really going to be dependent on the LIV merger or non-merger and how those guys get brought back into it. I mean, I think Bryson DeChambeau winning sort of gives fuel to the merger idea, where it's just like, at the end of the day, how can we not have him and some of the other guys, Brooks Koepka for sure, who are just competing day in, day out at every major? How can we not have them sort of competing at every other
absolutely and every week? It's too good competition that they're leaving out there.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think there's conflicted feelings among Jews about Saudi involvement. Maybe less conflicted than if it was from somewhere else. Like, it's not Qatari money,
right?
At least.
Yes.
That seems like small solace too.
Yes, I would say Qatari money is not going to good places at the moment.
Right. So maybe we should cheer for them to be investing in sports. That if Qatari money was going into just like, if they backed up the Brinks truck and Qatar just said like, Tiger Woods, here's $2.5 billion. We own you in perpetuity. You have to play golf in Qatar 15 times a year. Damn your legs. Like, that's $2.5 million. That $2.5 billion that the Qataris wouldn't be spending on, let's say, all the things they're spending on right now that are terrible for Jews in Israel and around the world.
Is that your defense of sports washing? Is that the sports washing is money that could be going to worse things?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think every dollar that the Saudi PIF is putting in, Hal Varner's pocket is money that it's not spending dismembering journalists. Like,
yes.
There's what I mean? Like, there's not an infinite pool of money. It's like the oil. There's some peak. And at some point you've reached peak sovereign wealth fund.
That's a very
and if you're spending that money on sports, it's better than anything else, right?
It's a very functional approach to the problem,
right? I remember reading ages ago about like how Abu Dhabi was spending money on like a Guggenheim that like no one was going to, and like other stuff and stuff like that. It's like, well, it's better than weapons. It's worse than like investing in things in your country. But like, okay, give Frank Gehry $20 million. Like, right. That's fine. Like, I'm not. Yeah,
you'd hope it would go to a school. You're on the taxonomy. It's like school education, helping poverty.
It's a reverse Maslow's. It's an inverted Maslow's pyramid.
Exactly.
Where it's like, actually, I don't want them spending money on security. I would like them spending money on Frank Gehry. Like,
on Frank Gehry.
Fine.
Exactly.
That's
fine.
That's ultimately that gets into the right pockets.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. So was he the first? Was he, is Frank Gehry too notable of a Jew to have taken Qatari blood money?
That's a good question. I mean, somehow he has escaped any consequence culture for working with that part of the world, or not. You know what? I'm sure. I take it back. I'm sure that there's been like an N+1 article written about this, or like something else.
He was really big on protected spaces, so he's. That's an architecture joke for all you people out there. Let's move on to talking about sports.
Let's do a little mid-season baseball check-in. I mean, the baseball season is not quite half over, but this is, I think there's a lot of people for whom like the end of June, like Independence Day in the States, is like the time they start thinking about baseball.
Yeah, it's the dog days.
Because hockey and basketball
the dog
are
days
gone.
Begin, so baseball gets to hit the. It comes front of mind.
It feels like just yesterday we were doing the baseball Seder, but now we've counted the Omer and we've got baseball harvest.
Now we've got the baseball cheesecake. Almost had the baseball bonfire.
Let's talk a little bit about the Jews who have having an impact this year. Start off in the top with former Benchwarmers guest Alex Bregman, who I believe recently hit his 9th or 10th home run of the year. He started off incredibly slow. He didn't have a homer until like mid-May, but since then he's been on a real tear. In the last month, he's been hitting like 290.
Unfortunately,
the Astros
are not good.
No, and it's so bizarre because they've been so dominant. We talked about this. We talked about this when we had him on. That just like it's crazy they've made the ALCS so many times in a row.
Yeah,
they're starting to turn things around, maybe, but like they're 6 games under 500, and at some point, like you are 6 games under 500. You're 10 games back from the wild card. You don't have enough games left. So.
Yeah, dude, they're going to run out of games, or they just bail on it. I mean, it's been quite bizarre to watch. A team that's been so dominant for the last decade, led by one, Alex Bregman. We love to see Alex turning it around. We don't like to see him struggle, but it's always interesting to see the teams on top change a little bit.
Yeah. Another Jewish player having a decent year for a pretty crummy team is Harrison Bader.
Yeah.
Formerly with the Yankees, now with the New York Mets. I think it's a very, it's exciting just to have a Jew in a New York team for a lot of Jewish sports fans, especially for the Mets.
Owner of a Magen David belt, Harrison Bader.
Yeah, that's right. And he's been having a decent year. He's hitting 270, playing pretty solid defense, contributing on both sides of the ball in an important way. Mostly in center field for the Mets, which is obviously key defensive position. But the Mets are 6 games back, I think, 4 games under 500 right now as we're taping this, and it's just
having a small turnaround, but still
a little
not the
bit.
same.
But it's just like I don't think anyone feels like they're going to make the playoffs. Like it's a pretty loaded NL East. Like they'll have more divisional play coming up.
Yep.
And that makes it really tough for them to turn things around because. How are they going to get there?
If you want to know a interesting Harrison Bader, fact, Harrison Bader's first cousin is the bass player of the band Vampire Weekend, which is also led by a Jew, Ezra Koenig.
Yeah, and moving on to another, again, having a good year on it. This is a bit of a theme, I think, this year. Maybe it's a Jewish. There's a bit of a Jewish theme to pull in there. I'm not sure what exactly it is, but we'll have to tease it out. But Jock Peterson's having a pretty solid year on the Diamondbacks, getting really regular playing time. Mm-hmm. Hit 9 home runs already, hitting 280. OPS over 900. Like that's really solid for a 32-year-old guy. Like that's what you want.
Great year.
Not contributing much defensively. Splitting his time mostly. I think he's been DHing a fair.
Yeah, he's been DHing primarily.
Yeah, which cuts into your value, but on the other hand, it's like, well, somebody's got to do it, and it's like at least he's giving results, and hitting 280 is always going to be in demand. But the Diamondbacks are a couple games under 500. I think people were expecting more of them this year, coming after winning the NL pennant.
I think so. They're not having the best season. Los Serpentes, as their City Connect uniform says. But I think, as most Jewish people in Arizona, they don't really exist until September, October. There's lots of time to go on, but it's too hot to play baseball in Arizona right now.
You have a parent who lives part of the year in Phoenix. Have you been there in the summer at all?
When I was a little kid, we went in the summer once, and my parent who goes there, he does go in the summer because it's empty. He is like willing to deal with the heat if he doesn't have to deal with other people.
I love baseball more than almost anything in the world, and I still don't know if I could sit in the Arizona sun for a 3-hour baseball game.
No, so they play indoors in the summer.
Yeah.
The Diamondbacks do, but what brings the baseball?
Sorry, did they just close the stadium?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What keeps my dad going back is, at least in Arizona, is the fall league. He goes to as many fall league games as he possibly can. Right. That said, he does go. He says a summer in Arizona is a lot like a winter in Canada. You are just hustling from indoor place to indoor place the entire time.
Right. You got to bring a sweater with you, because then when you go indoors, it's very cold with the air conditioning.
Exactly. And you can't be tempted to go outside, because going outside is really rough.
Yeah. The last, sort of regular Jewish ball player that I want to talk about, who's similarly been having an amazing year, especially given where he's been the last year, is Kevin Pillar. So JTA caught up with him a couple weeks ago and sort of profiled how, he's had this resurgence. He started the year in Chicago for the White Sox and was traded to the LA Angels, who, again, I don't know if they have a dream of getting out of the basement. Like they are just sort of more unfranchised at this point.
Not in a good place.
Yeah. Despite having, Mike Trout has been injured, he's having issues, but been the best baseball player of the last 15 years, basically. Mm-hmm. They haven't done anything with him. But Kevin Pillar comes in and he gets traded. He has been hitting 340 since he got there, 6 home runs.
He's been fantastic. And it's, he was sort of on the tail. People saw him as the tail end of his career. He was struggling to find a job for the last few years.
I think he signed a minor league contract with the White Sox, which is really like you're a veteran and we're happy to have you around, but don't expect a job. Like, we'll see what happens. He's played a little bit here and there. Like, he played 81 games last year. He only played 4 games in 2022. Like, that's a pretty good sign. I think he was dealing with injuries, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of guys who are like that, who go from being everyday guys to occasional guys to didn't make the team to being out of baseball. So to see him bounce back at age 35 is, like, I would say unprecedented. It's shocking. He's never hit this well before. He's never hit for this amount of power. He's hit 21 home runs in a season before, but again, that's, we're talking about 5 years ago when he was a younger man, when the ball was flying a lot further as well. So it's not that he doesn't have the skill. He's always had it, but it hasn't quite all connected. He was a very valuable contributor on the defensive side, especially in his early years with the Blue Jays. But
and now, in LA, it's pretty nice to see him having, especially in the Jewish Mecca of LA, of him playing where it's his home. He's a California guy. It's nice to see him back home and having a really good time, and playing really well. I want to double down on this, and not about career resurgence, but career ascendance, is that I think it's probably safe to say that Max Fried might be the Cy Young favorite in the NL so far this season.
Absolutely. I mean, his ERA is right down around 3. He's pitching for the Braves, who are, not quite running away with it because the Phillies have been so excellent, but the Braves are they're always going to be there. And it's like, if at the end of the day, if you don't look at the standings for a couple of days and then do look, and then the Braves are ahead of the Phillies all of a sudden, you're not going to be shocked. You're just going to be like, oh, right, the NL East, like they're very good. He had some struggles early in the year,
but he's been fantastic ever since then. He's got right now the best whip of his career, the second lowest ERA of his career, and he's come in second in Cy Young voting before.
That's
and he's
right.
even better this year than he was that year. He's been spectacular.
Yeah, I think it really just come down to how the other players around him do. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the other main Jewish starting pitcher, Dean Kramer, hasn't pitched since the end of May. He's been dealing with an injury. I think he's rehabbing right now. I can't remember if his shoulder or tricep, something in the arm that he's been dealing with. But hopefully he'll be back soon, and obviously will be contributing to an Orioles team, which, again, the pitching side of things is where it's good for Jews, especially come September or come October, when we're looking at who's rooting interest in the playoffs. It's going to be on the pitching side.
Expect to see.
The other person I wanted to talk about, who's come up to the majors since we last spoke, is Blue Jays favorite and former Benchwarmers guest Spencer Horwitz.
Yeah, since we last spoke to him, he's come up to the majors.
That's right. I guess he's come up twice since we last spoke to him.
Yes,
because he was up last year.
But he seems to be up for good now.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. It's at the beginning of this year, he wasn't on the big league team. He played maybe 30 games last year for the big league club, maybe not quite that many. I think people were sort of impressed with what he did last year. It's not that he did anything wrong. It's just sort of like sometimes it's a calculus issue where it's just like, yeah, sorry, we have too many guys at your position. We can't do anything. He's primarily been a first baseman, but he's also he's now 26 years old. He's almost 27. This is sort of the do or die time for a lot of Major League Baseball players, where it's like either you're a pro or you're not, right? Like either you're a big leaguer or you're not. He hit well last year. He hit 250, had a little bit of pop, had pretty good plate discipline, which is part of the read on him. That he walks a fair amount.
Yeah, he was getting on base almost half of his at bats so far this year in the minor leagues, which is incredible discipline.
Right, and that's what I was going to say, that he had such a good season so far in the minor leagues that it was eventually the Blue Jays' hand was sort of forced. They've been struggling. We've been struggling for offense and needed some replacement. Kevin Biggio, who has been their sort of super utility man, but pretty light hitting player, was DFA'd, was designated for assignment, so Horwitz could be called up, and he's had an immediate impact on the game. I mean, he's hitting over 300. He's only been in 8 games so far. But I was going to say the most important thing about what's happened since he's come up is they moved him to second base, which has allowed him more playing time.
It's something the Jays. I've always said the Jays need more Jewish second basemen.
We sort of have the Jays sort of have a regular second baseman in Davis Schneider. He's obviously a fan favorite. Hit a home run tonight. Like he was not a heralded prospect, but has done enough to prove his worth to get pretty regular playing time. But if you're Spencer, being able to play first base, second base, maybe a little left field, gives you, I think, enough positional versatility that you can get into the game with two first basemen ahead of you. And yesterday, for example, he made an excellent play where he snagged the ball. It was a hit and run. He snagged the ball, stepped on second right in front of the runner, and threw to first and got a double play. So that's a quality play for any second baseman.
It's a heads up play, especially for a rookie.
Absolutely. And it was I think he's been pretty, error free. Like, he's been very solid in the field. So I think that's going to mean that he is going to get regular playing time. He's not at the everyday second baseman, but he will be playing 4 or 5 times a week. Again, pending any slump or anything like that. And honestly, you get 80, 90 games under your belt in a year. And it's, aside from service time concerns, I don't know all the details on that, but just, it means they're thinking about you as a major leaguer. You're not a guy on the cusp anymore.
Completely. I hope so too. And we are fans of him as a person and as a player. Spencer's
Absolutely.
a lovely guy, and we are honored to have him on the show. So we're hoping for his career to go what he deserves, because he's worked his ass off and he's super nice about it.
I'm obviously he was a Team Israel guy last year at the World Baseball Classic. I think, given what Alex Bregman hinted to us when we spoke to him of a maybe a 2026 super team, that he could be a guy who's a real cornerstone of that.
It would be spectacular.
They could really put it together. We should say, just on that front, I mean, there's no baseball at the Olympics this year. I'm sure we're going to talk Olympics more in our next episode, talk about some Jewish athletes, and Israeli athletes.
We don't have a solid 23 Israeli Olympians, baseball Olympians this year. So,
right.
We're going to dig a little deeper.
But no baseball is a bummer. I don't know if there are any baseball diamonds in Paris. I bet there's probably 1 or 2.
Yes.
But, there must have been somewhere GIs played. Like the last scene of Band of Brothers. That must have been somewhere. That couldn't have been too far. Anyway.
Yeah, it had to be somewhere.
Regardless, no baseball this year. There will be the World Baseball Classic in 2026. There will be an Olympics in 2028. I have no idea how 2028 Olympic qualifying works. I'm hoping Israel does what it needs to qualify, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's like 6 teams make it in and it's a total sideshow. Based on the time of year, it won't have Major League Baseball players, so that's its own challenge. But anyways, on the international front, we're not going to have anything for the next couple of years, but a 2026 World Baseball Classic Israel team will be shaping up and will be great. We know there was a recent movie that came out. We'll talk about maybe some more in the future with some people involved about Israel's Olympic run. But the point is, on the international side, the prospects remain high for Israel's national baseball team and the mostly American Jews who make up that team.
And we'll get to a story, a couple more stories about that in the future. But before we talk about this, we're almost at the end, one way or another, of the Zach Hyman wonder season.
Right.
He had 50 goals this year. He's leading the league in playoff goals. Unfortunately, we are getting to the point of the season where, they're down 3-1. It might be curtains for the Edmonton Oilers this week, by the time you guys are hearing this episode even.
Yeah, sorry. So we're taping. It's 3-1 right now. Game 5 is in Florida. Is Game 6 back in Edmonton?
Yes, Game 6 would be back in Edmonton.
Okay, so if the look, hockey has had 3-0 comebacks a few times.
They have. Never in the finals, but they have.
Never in the finals. Yeah. So it's definitely possible. I mean, Edmonton beat up on Florida in the last game. Maybe that's just okay, gentleman sweep. We're not going to embarrass you in your home ice twice, but who knows? We'll see if Edmonton can fight back. Obviously, Hyman will have to be a big part of that. And so far he's been a contributor, but I don't think he's scored in the finals yet. And he will need to be a big part of that. So he will need to be part of the plan for knocking off the Panthers in Game 5, and just take it one game at a time.
Absolutely,
keep trying to win and make it happen. Moving over to the round ball, we're sort of in the same position as we're taping this. The Celtics are up on the Mavs in the first half of of Game 5. Same situation, gentleman sweep in all likelihood. So there won't be an Adelson NBA championship hoisting moment in all likelihood.
At least not now.
At least not now. I guess if you're anyone who's still understandably harboring a grudge against Kyrie Irving can rest easy.
That he's probably not going to win.
Yeah, and I guess Jews of Boston can celebrate a Celtics championship. I take no solace in that.
No, I don't either. But I think we can celebrate the ghost of Red Auerbach is probably enjoying winning this.
Sure, smoking a victory cigar in heaven somewhere
on the big bench in the sky.
On the big bench in the sky. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for recent sports news. Why don't we take a quick break and chat about a few more things and then wrap up here.
Is life really miserable for the Jews, or are we just glued to a 24-hour news cycle?
Should we be worried that so many young rabbis are coming out of seminary as anti-Zionists?
And what does Judaism say about polyamory?
If you want answers to these questions, well, we don't have any. But we do love asking them. Each week, tune into Bonjour Chai to hear debates and hot takes by me, Avi Feingold,
and me, Phoebe Maltz-Bovey,
as we sit down with pundits, rabbis, and scholars to talk about the most pressing issues facing Jews in Canada and around the world.
Listen and subscribe to Bonjour Chai at thecjn.ca/bonjour or wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got to stop the presses for a moment. During our break, I have found a Jewish connection of the modern Boston Celtics.
Oh, yeah.
It is a topic that we've covered on this podcast before. Since the 2020 draft, it's been 4 full years, they still own the NBA exclusive rights to Israeli player Yam Madar.
Oh, okay.
So while Yam Madar is not currently on the roster, he is currently playing for Fenerbahce Beko of the Turkish league.
Congrats on that attempted pronunciation, because I know that word has like one of the things under the sea.
Yeah.
Turkish, and I have no idea how to pronounce that.
Yeah. Well, Yam Madar.
Yeah.
A friend of former guest on this podcast, Coach Thorpe. Yam is still tethered to the Red Sox, to the Celtics. So there's a connection that the Boston Celtics have.
That's something. I guess that's pretty decent, actually. I mean, I think that's like not a guy who gets a ring, but
no.
He could theoretically join the Celtics at some point in the future and play with guys who do. Before we go, I want to talk about something that a listener wrote in to the CJN to tell us about. The listener's name is Irv Osterer. Tell us about his late brother, Howie, who was inducted into the Ottawa Sports Hall of Fame. Howie was part of the 1974 Little Grey Cup winning Ottawa Sooners. This is like I guess not like a high school team, but like high school age kids,
right?
Amateur football team that won the Little Grey Cup back in 1974. First time Ottawa won a national championship, and the whole team was inducted into the Ottawa Sports Hall of Fame a couple weeks ago. Sadly, Howie died 10 years ago, and this is pretty fitting for such a Jewish athlete. He died while umpiring a baseball game at Kibbutz Gezer in Israel. So, guy who was really involved with Israel baseball. Looking up the article about his tragic death, there's a quote from King of Jewish baseball himself, Nate Fish, I guess who was at the game and
a close friend of his. I have to say it is a tragedy, but that's a pretty good way to go. Doing what you love, in a friendly crowd, growing the game in a country that needs it.
Yeah. So
in a country where it's catching on.
So shout out to Howie. I hope that's a nice memory for Irv and the rest of the family that he was inducted into the Ottawa Sports Hall of Fame. And was a real Canadian Jewish athlete and sports figure.
Mm-hmm.
So may his memory continue to be a blessing to those people that he was close to. Until next time, we'll leave it there. You can follow us as always on Twitter at Menschwarmers. You can read our content and see our podcast on the Canadian Jewish News' website, thecjn.ca, and we're executive produced by Michael Frankel. Thanks for listening.